Hello, my name's Mario and I'm the inventor of the SAFEBRIDGE roofing system. I've been in the roofing, plumbing, structural steel sectors of the building industry for about 30 years, and in that time I've always wanted to look at what would be the most efficient way to do something. Now, with changes that occurred in 2008 in the building code, according to the Section J part of the building code, it meant that no longer were we able to squash down the insulation in roofs, in commercial roofs on purlin systems. So what that meant essentially was that the wool was not allowed to be squashed and spacers were introduced into the roofing industry. What's a spacer? Well, a spacer was either a metal bracket or sometimes pieces of wood or even foam, and they sat on top of the purlin and they only squashed a small part of the insulation, but it raised the roof sheeting off the purlin. And that allowed for what they call a full recovery of the insulation, and hence they got the R value that was warranted for the building. I thought that that wasn't a very efficient way, if you like, of doing things. And it was because of that reason that I invented the SAFEBRIDGE roofing system. Well, SAFEBRIDGE is essentially a structural steel system. It's actually a new kind of bridging that fits in between the purlins, and it sits lower down than what normal bridging would. But that bridging is strong enough to support the safety mesh, which is essential for safety for roofers working at height, and then the insulation can sit on top of that. Now, the depths of purlins obviously vary, but let's say the average purlin would be perhaps 200 millimeters deep. That means that we can have insulation up to 200 millimeters, or no, insulation up to about probably 160 millimeters deep within the roof structure itself, and not having it on top like everybody else is doing. So that's what the SAFEBRIDGE system is. Well, for the roofer, there's a lot of advantages. The first thing is the way the safety mesh or safety wire is installed. Traditionally, when we, in a normal building situation, we'll run the wire across the purlins. What happens is that those purlins have to be drilled out every 150 millimeters. That's a lot of work on a large scale building. That's a lot of work of drilling holes all the way along the side of the building and then going to the other side, drilling that all out, and then attaching the wire, pulling it across, sometimes with a wire puller, but depends. So straight off the bat, there's no drilling out of the purlins, and that is quite a significant cost saving for the roofer. Also, in normal roofing, the wire, the safety mesh, has to get lapped. Even lapping the wire can become an issue, and it's unfortunate that there have been fatalities on building sites where it was incorrectly lapped. And in the SAFEBRIDGE system, there is no lapping of the wire because the wire is running the opposite way in between the purlins, no laps at all, so we don't lose 10% of the wire or 20% of the wire. And of course, there's no joining of the wire either. Those laps now have to be joined at certain intervals, and so all of that extra work is negated by the SAFEBRIDGE system. The next real advantage for SAFEBRIDGE, as opposed to other systems, is that the roofer can see all the purlins. You see, in a normal building practice, with the insulation going across the purlins, they're hidden. And so the roofer has to somehow place his foot on that purlin, and that's where accidents occur. So it's, in actual fact, SAFEBRIDGE is sort of like what we call dry laying a roof, where you can see the purlins, you can just put the sheet straight down, there's absolutely no confusion there at all. And so that's a real advantage, because in the spacer systems, those spacers have to be applied through the insulation on top of the purlin, and you can never be sure that you're right in the centre of the purlin or that you're not off to the side, and all those things can affect the quality of the job. The other thing is that the roof sheets are now fixed directly to the purlin. What advantage does that have? Well, if you've got a spacer system, the box gutters, the ridge caps, barge caps are all enlarged in size because you've got that extra depth that has to be accounted for. So that is another impact on the cost of the overall roofing envelope. There's over 20 different details that we've put on the website. It helps with architects and even engineers to understand how the SAFEBRIDGE system works. There's also the work method statements that we've developed as well, including the use of EWPs for the access for the riggers. All of these things are helping with compliance on site for the contractor, for the workers. And with all of those detail sheets that we have, it leaves everyone in no doubt how the system should be used. And we've done it in a way that's going to make it as efficient as possible on site, and that's something for everyone. SAFEBRIDGE is only being developed and being used under the Metrol banner. So you can only get SAFEBRIDGE from Metrol as far as the purlins go. Along with that as well, CSR Bradford spent a lot of time and effort with me in developing the thermal achievement that we can get, and we can get from R4.8 even up to R10. So the manufacturers that are involved in the SAFEBRIDGE system are Metrol, who make the purlins, the bridging and the stabiliser brackets, and CSR Bradfords, who are involved with the manufacture of the safety mesh and the insulation. It's essential to understand just how important the spacings are for the SAFEBRIDGE roofing system. What I mean by that is the distance between the purlins themselves. Now, they've been set at 4 measurements as best as it can be applied to any building. That's 610 millimetres, 910 millimetres between the purlins, or 1210 millimetres between the purlins, or 1350. Now, it's done at those increments specifically for the safety mesh, which has to fit in between the purlins, and they can only be manufactured at certain widths, and also for the insulation, which has to have a certain amount of material folded up on the inside as a condensation control. We've found that 1210 is generally the measurement that people use between the purlins. SAFEBRIDGE can be used on pitched roofs, whereas spacer systems can't be used on anything over 10 degrees. The real advantage of SAFEBRIDGE, as I mentioned before, is being fixed directly to the purlin. You see, all these cyclone shelters that have been built all up the top end of Australia, they're only using SAFEBRIDGE because it's stronger than any other system out there. So why would you use something that was inferior? Especially when you start comparing costs, and SAFEBRIDGE proves to be around about 30% cheaper than a spacer system. The SAFEBRIDGE system is safer, it's stronger, and it is superior.